Hi, folks. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to Ask Evelyn Live. I'm Becca Fong, and I am the Outreach Coordinator for Residential Outreach for Seattle Public Utilities, and I am so glad that you guys are here with us. It is episode 25, so we have been with you guys for almost 6 months, which is fantastic. And we've got a great show for you today. We've got two really great questions. This month has been all about recycle right as our topic. And so we've got two great questions right in that vein. So, for those of you who are new to us, thank you. We're glad you found us. And for those of you who have been loyal viewers, welcome back. So this is Ask Evelyn, where we answer your questions about recycling, garbage, compost, and other trashy topics. So I'm joined by my co-host. I'm going to let him introduce himself here.
Hi, everybody. This is Pat Kaufman. I'm a recycling program manager for commercial outreach at Seattle Public Utilities. Happy to be here. Get to usually work with businesses and talk about recycling and composting, but today I get to work with Becca on some outreach to the community. So I love it.
Absolutely. So every week we answer two questions from you, and this week is no different. And then we also check in on our weekly waste challenge, where we take on a challenge, and we hope that you will join us to find ways to reduce our waste or sort our waste a little bit better. And we report back on how we did. So we'll bring that to you at the end of the show. So with that, we can, one more thing I almost forgot. This show is totally powered by you guys.
That's right.
So, the questions that we got this week are from you. We got them both from the Ask Evelyn email box. And so thank you guys. Keep them coming, please. It lets us know what you're interested in and gives us awesome material to talk with you about. So with that, Pat, do you want to get us started with question one?
You bet. Sure thing. Okay, question one here, sent to the Ask Evelyn inbox. So it's a question from Michael. Can you recycle corrugated plastic yard signs? So he's talking about the political signs or other business signs and such like that. But there's a lot of them out there right now. There'll be even more in the coming couple months. But so yeah, those items are not recyclable in the blue cart. This is a type of plastic. It's kind of like we talk about, not all plastics are created equal. So this is now it's becoming more and more common, this corrugated plastic. It's like little square tubes of plastic that make it. That's why it's called corrugated. And it's a kind of plastic that mimics cardboard in the recycle center. So if you put it in the blue cart, which you should not, but if it goes in the cart and ends up at the recycle center, it gets sorted by all the mechanical sorting machinery, and it ends up with all the cardboard, and then it's just a contaminant in that stream. So they're not targeting it. They don't want it at the recycle center. It's a non-recyclable item that, it's more, there's more and more of it out there. So,
sure, especially now, right? Yeah, especially right now.
And it's become, for a while there were paper ones, and then we were talking about earlier how there were those plastic bag ones that kind of can hang on a couple metal bars, and then the corrugated ones. They're becoming more and more prevalent, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
They're more. It's more common, the one that's used by candidates and whatnot. So, and then of course we see them also for other companies, who are advertising their services and such. So we see more and more of them. I'm hopeful maybe someday there'll be an option, a take back program for that, even a campaign, maybe in December every year, it'll be a collection effort or something.
Sure.
We don't have anything like that lined up yet. And it's more of a, this is where you get into those extended producer responsibility models.
Right.
You really want the people who create the product and push it out into the community to take it back. Because, a lot of these are painted on boards. They're not really reusable in the printing world. They've already got their sticky paint on there. So, but maybe they'll come up with some processes in the future where they'll be able to strip off the, signage for one and you reuse it for later. It's a very durable material that one can, find reuses for in their household or with their kids or whatever.
Sure. Absolutely.
And build some structures or something. Yeah.
It's a super durable material, which is why they're used so prevalently, right? Like the other ones, the paper ones, the kind of like plastic film ones don't hold up really well. As our weather is changing today to absolutely be a fall day. Those heavy corrugated plastic ones that look exactly like cardboard but are completely made out of plastic, they just work really well here.
Yeah.
We have looked into some other options for kind of that take back, right, Pat? And we had talked to a couple of folks who recall especially for political campaigns, that their local legislative district has often collected those back, at least to batch them together. Because with all recyclables that we accept in our recycle carts, it's all about sortation, really. Like, that's the plastic it's made out of is valuable, but there's no way for the MRF to separate that plastic out to get it to the recycler. So if you can batch them together and then, you know, find a place to take them, then that's great. Yeah. So I would definitely check in to see if, you know, who you got them from is maybe taking them back if it's for, say, a campaign or a short amount of time. But totally, they're super durable. Like, I mean, we've reused them for all kinds of projects. We've used them to like make signs on because they're so durable, repaint them.
It's a great board for like applying another sheet of paper to make your garage sale sign or your, you know, whatever, any kind of a sign that you might want to make. So I also think that, you know, it's through those reuse programs that like some of the candidates run again for office, so they might reuse them as they are printed, you know, so it's not, there's other options there. So I would, that right now is our only real feedback on that item. And as time progresses, maybe we'll find, you know, a program that can be created around that.
Totally. So not in the cart.
No.
And, you know, but definitely find out, you know, contact who you got them from and see if they'll take them back so they can compile them all together. Or you've got a super durable material that will last outside that you can reuse for some cool projects.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. That was a really, really great question. That one came to us from, who wrote us that one?
That was Michael.
Awesome. Thanks,
Michael.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for writing to askevelyn@seattle.gov.
Definitely. I missed that at the top of the different ways you could send us questions, either through the email or on our various social feeds as well. All right. So question 2. Hi, this article recently came out in NPR. It's about how big oil misled the public into believing plastic would be recycled. So those of you who are watching Ask Evelyn are probably right in this boat. It's, you know, something that has definitely come up a lot, you know. So in the interest of improving my impact on the environment, I'd like to learn what Seattle does with our recycled plastic. Does it get shipped to a processing plant in another country? What are the most recyclable items? And what do you do with a random bottle that says recyclable? Thanks. Thank you, Andy. Andy, great question.
Yeah.
These are exactly the kinds of questions that we would love to see from you guys. So Andy, there's kind of a lot to unpack here, but I'm really glad that you presented this question because plastics, Pat, I mean, those come up a lot. They come up a ton. And like you just said in the last questions, not all plastics are created equal. So I wanted to kind of break this down and remind everybody that, you know, plastics are one of those things that they are a large category of types of materials. And while they have been in the news a lot lately, they are, you know, one of many items that go on our recycle carts, right? And what is accepted into the kind of commingled recycling program, as well as where that material goes, depends on which 2 things, Pat. What are we always telling folks?
Whether it's sortable at the recycle center or whether it has a market. So they have to meet 2, those are the main criteria. You know, it's like, there's a lot like the political signs we just talked about. I mean, it's a fine plastic. There's a lot of it out there, but it's not a good candidate for the blue card. It doesn't work in the system. So hopefully there'll be another system later. And you know, these NPR and, you know, many different news organizations, they do a fine effort at trying to talk about plastics overall around the world, and then they talk about the recycle programs, and those are 2 completely different things. It always, you know, bugs me as a recycler when they say, of all the plastics made in the world, only 1.5% are recycled. Well, it's because we're only collecting bottles, tubs, you know, jugs, and small containers, right? I mean, there's so much material in this world that's made from plastic that we're not collecting in the blue cart. So it's such a, you know, it's a misnomer to compare the 2 numbers, but that's how these things kind of get a little traction, is because that's you know, surprising to people. But the reality is we have pretty good capture rates for the things that we actually want to collect, like of the bottles and tubs and jugs in Seattle, for example. I don't know. I can't cite the capture rate numbers, but I know that I'm like, when I hear them, I'm always like, oh, good. We're doing pretty good. You know, we're not as good as bottle bill states. You know, in some states where they put a deposit on each bottle and can, they get a lot of those plastic bottles back because there's a value, like an actual monetary value on those bottles. So those models are obviously better capture rate performing jurisdictions or states, or Canada does that as well. And but that's our model is like, if it's rigid and it's plastic and it fits our guidelines, go ahead and put it in the blue cart and we'll sort it out from there.
Right. And I think that that's another thing, with large national articles like this one that Andy sent to us. It talks about, we talk a lot about that sortation, which depends on the MRF that you are sending your recyclable material to. They generally have the same technologies, but they're all tooled up a little bit differently. And then the brokers who, take those different commodities and send them off to different markets are very different. Right. And so it's really hard to have kind of a ubiquitous comparison all the way across even a region, let alone the nation. So
yeah, we benefit here locally, as we were talking about, how we're immediately adjacent to British Columbia in Canada, and they have a terrific EPR program, Extended Producer Responsibility Program, where they're actually, some of their programmatic elements are funded by the manufacturers of these products. So they're able to outfit a sorting facility with a whole bunch of optical sorters. And these are these machines that basically mechanically sort through, laser infrared identification of materials. It's fun to watch the machines at work. They're able to sort for all 6 different grades of plastic. And in our facilities, we only really sort for the top 2 because of the commodity market. So we send, as you were going to mention, we send our 3 through 6 plastics to BC for additional sorting.
Sure, absolutely. So, Andy, I'm trying to take your question in a couple of parts. So what do we do with our recycled plastic? So we sort it, the 1s and 2s that Pat was just talking about. So, I got kind of some good examples, like, we've got our plastic PET bottles and a soda pop bottle. Sure. Like these things are really high value, as well as milk jugs. My kids weren't quite done with the milk, so I figured I wouldn't bring that one to the show today. But those get sorted, and those are processed within North America. They're really strong markets for those. Mm-hmm. And so those get sorted separately and they get baled and sold off. So those have always had very strong markets. The other materials that are more of kind of the tubs and the containers. So I've got a sour cream container here with a lid. And so those would go, we take it, we are able to tap into the EPR program and system within British Columbia, and we send those 3 through 7 plastics up to them to get sorted at what we call a secondary MRF.
Right.
And then, Pat, you've been to Merlin Plastics, who we partner with, and maybe you could tell folks kind of what that process looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying a little bit about it a minute ago. Again, these machines are very expensive. They do automated sorting. I always use my fingers like this because there's all these little lasers.
Lasers.
They're lasers, and they zap down into this like space, and they can tell from, I think it's called refraction, how much of the laser goes through the item or whatever happens to it. So they can tell whether it's a number 2 or a number 5 or a number 6.
Right.
And then they know where that is then on the conveyor belt, or the computer knows, and then there's a little poof of air that just shoots that little container down a different conveyor belt. So that's how it mechanically sorts it. It's not people, and it's not colors, or they're not looking at those little numbers on the bottom of the containers. It's all done by mechanical means with this technology stuff, which is great. So they purchased like a dozen of these machines. We only have a couple in Seattle. We focus on the 1 and 2s, and the rest we're able to. So we commingle, we bale our mixed plastics, our mixed rigids, and that is what is shipped, to this secondary sorting facility. And there's discussion. There's called a PERF, a plastic recycling facility, is the term in the industry. So we're talking about getting another one of those co-located between Portland and Seattle, or these are all discussions on a high level that you hope the industry can kind of step into once there's supply and demand and all that stuff. So right now we got a great situation. They're able to take our materials. That's a North American facility, and they process it back into the little tiny pellets, the little tiny BB-sized pieces of plastic. So they chop it up, they bathe it, they re-extrude it into these little tiny plastic pellets, which is the feedstock for all other plastic materials that are made. Absolutely. So it's not going overseas. It's not accidentally getting, flushed down into the ocean or something. Our plastics in Seattle are going via a system where it's being remanufactured and being remarketed to the manufacturers.
Which I think is at the core, and I think that's a lot of what fills a lot of people's minds, and I think are concerns that I know you and I have as well, in working in this industry and then also being consumers, is that what is happening with this material, right?
Yeah.
We want to know what's happening with it, how we can be good stewards of it. And I think that that's why I love these questions.
Yeah.
So let's see, one more thing. What are the most recyclable items? Andy, I think we covered that. So there's, the ones and the twos. Again, you can see behind Pat in your awesome background. We try to talk about categories. We talk about, plastic tubs, jugs, bottles, containers. Those things
I've got my more direct.
There you go. See, Pat's got us hooked up right here. Like these are the most valuable recyclable plastic items if we're sticking on plastic. But we divided into categories to try to make it a little less confusing. So those are the things you want to focus on. I think the other thing that's really important, because it's Recycle Right Month. We always want to tell folks that you want to make sure everything is empty, clean, and dry. Right. That's really what you're after, because even these super valuable commodities, if they've still got food in it, if there's water contaminating the paper, dripping out of these, they are less valuable. So empty, clean, and dry, and focus on, bottles, tubs, containers, and jugs. Those are the things that are super valuable for plastics. And honestly, if you have some concerns about it, it doesn't fit into one of those categories, it's too gross to clean, feel free, please put it in your garbage. It is better than contaminating the recycling.
Yeah, what we say is, when in doubt, find out. So go to the Where Does It Go website, try and look up the item you're holding in your hand, you're thinking about. But if you're not going to do that, then when in doubt, throw it out. I mean, that's the other phrase.
That's true.
It's, but the idea is that, our Where Does It Go page has a lot of terms and sections to it. So whatever you think you have that might be recycled, we've probably addressed it. And if we have it, if you don't see it on there, send us an email to Ask Evelyn at seattle.gov.
Absolutely.
And our crack team of interns and us staff members, we work together to, research and discover it's not going to be for recycling and it's not compostable, it's going to be garbage, but what can we tell them on the lookup tool page that can give folks a little bit of information about it. So that's what we're after. But it takes customers to call us and let us know what do they want to recycle,
I mean, that's why we love doing the show. We love hearing from you. So if there's items that you're confused about, of course, or if there's items that you looked up on the Where Does It Go tool and you cannot find them, drop us a note as well.
Right.
So really great question, Andy, and I hope that we answered all that. If not, reach back out. So really, really good questions. Plastics are definitely something that has come up a lot. So we are always happy to answer your questions and help kind of demystify that process. All right. So now we're to the point in our show where we revisit our weekly waste challenge.
That's right.
So this one was really fun, and I hope that some of you did it at home. And if you did, please share your pictures, and we are going to post the pictures that we're going to share with you now for our 2-day recycle waste audit. So what you do, just to break it down really simply, collect all of your recycling for 2 days, have a look at it, and then just see what's in there. I mean, that is the most valuable thing. It's always really telling. You kind of know what you're consuming and goes into the recycle cart. But I always find it very illuminating to see it all in mass in front of me. And I'm like, wow, I got a lot of all of this stuff. So Pat, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Show us some of your picks?
I'm all keyed up here with my other phone. So I'll show a picture of all the recyclables together. So you can kind of, hopefully that focuses in a little bit there.
Yeah.
Just, put it all out on a drop cloth in the garage. You can see I've sorted it in different categories.
Yeah.
And then, so we got our plastics here. So I have a milk jug, Gatorade bottles, a couple other to-go containers, another one of those cottage cheese containers. So there's the plastic. Then, of course, mail, junk mail and paper.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
So a lot of that. And then metals. So metals for us, there's one ball of aluminum foil there. It's a little too close. And then a tin can, a bunch of aluminum cans, and some of those cat food cans. See, I don't know if you can. I wish I had a way of zooming in on this somehow, but
tilt it. Maybe if you tilt your phone, will it do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, if you can see how I crunched the lid in, so that's one of those peel-off lids where you have a little finger hole. Yeah, where you can peel off lid. So if you put that back in the can, then you can kind of pinch in the sides and it keeps the lid in there. Because we don't want loose lids that have sharp edges. Those metal lids that come off of a crank open can opener, those are really sharp, and they'll get wedged in the conveyor belts at the recycle center, and they just sort of peel off the rubber on the conveyor belt. It's really a bummer when they get wedged in the wrong spot. So And they're also sharp and they can be a hazard to the sorting staff. So if you can drop your lid back in the can, then just crimp the can over and we'll bend it over. That's a way to keep that little bit more metal back in the can.
Totally.
And I guess I had maybe one more category.
Glass, maybe? Did you have any glass?
You know, I didn't have any glass.
Okay, there you
was no
go.
glass in my, that's a good point. I didn't have
Yeah.
glass. So it was my cardboard.
Paperboard. There you go.
So paperboard, cardboard. I got a carton and then just mostly paperboard. I didn't have any corrugated this week at this time.
Okay.
So yeah.
So
that happens.
really quick before I share mine. So Pat,
Yeah.
you know, kind of looking at all of your recyclables, kind of what did you glean from that? Like what ideas kind of came up in your mind about your recyclable items?
Well, that's a good question. I'll have to think about that. It was clean, you know, I was happy. I'm just one person in the household of three, so it's all getting out into the bin, nice and clean and tidy. Yeah, I was surprised when I had glass. I guess there wasn't any like pickle jars or anything like that that went empty this week. We were just picked up on Tuesday morning, so I only had a day and a half really of collection, which is quite a bit of stuff really for a day and a half. But so yeah, I think it was just that everything was clean and dry. So here's another real quick tip then. I don't turn my things upside down and let them dry on a drying countertop.
Okay.
But, you know, everything was dry, as you can see in the picture. Nothing was soaking wet. So evaporation is really, it's going to happen. Okay. It happens whether you like it or not. So you don't have to like have a drying rack for your recyclables, in my opinion. I think that's sort of putting another burden on the recyclers out there. It's like, no, you don't need to, like, when we say empty, clean, and dry, we don't want a half of a bucket of, you know, juice or something. An empty juice container could be rinsed, you know, and that would be fine. But the point is, like, no liquids, and don't leave your cart lid open on a rainy day like today.
That's really kind of the biggest
other
thing.
dry part too. So those are some thoughts of what I collected. So let's see what you got. What you got?
So those of you out there who are kind of more savvy will notice that I actually found the text tool.
Yeah.
So, and I've got a little light reflection in here, but here's my 2-day audit, and we'll post pictures of all of these things with the show notes. So I separated mine into different sections. So we've got plastic bottles and tubs.
Okay.
Right? And I've got that kind of cottage cheese container. I've got a pop bottle, I've got a soap dispenser, and a tofu container.
Yeah, the tofu one, right?
Paper. I had a lot of paper. I mean, we go through a lot of it here. You see that kind of white office paper at the bottom. You know, luckily my kids didn't see because I get busted every time I'm like recycling their art project.
Right.
So I got to be really careful.
Yeah, school started up. You're going to have paper. You're going to have a lot of drafts.
Those get buried in the bottom.
That's right.
You know, every art piece is precious.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I enjoy it for a while. The next category I had, which is a little bit different, and I'm sorry I'm getting some glare here, is, you know, I had some cardboard, I had paperboard, mixed paper. I had one of those poly-coated plates. A neighbor actually had shared some really delicious homemade fry bread with me. And she had a paper towel underneath it, but I really didn't have another use for it. So that went into the recycle. It was not greasy and it was clean. So that's where that went. I had some magazines I'm done reading.
Yep, totally acceptable. As long as it's, you know, wiped clean and dry, it'd be okay to recycle that paperboard plate.
Yeah. I had more metal. I got one of those cat food cans too, Pat.
Oh, there you go.
Mine. We got a lot of pop cans in there, and I've got like a folded metal tray that we used to death. We used it for food. We used it in the garden, and it had too many holes in it. It was tiny. So, and then the last one that I had a couple of bottles. So, you know, and I have to say that, you know, it is always surprising how much paper we generate. We weren't on the junk mail route this week, apparently, so that usually fills up quite a bit. I was also really surprised how empty and dry everything was, because my household has 6 people in it. And so that's a lot of people contributing to a recycle bin. And I got some little people who are maybe not so great about cleaning or rinsing stuff, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
So, you know, like even the cat food can, my kids feed the cat, and, you know, they leave it on the counter and I crush it together, and they did good. You know, it's clean and it was dry. So,
and of course, we went all out. We dumped it all out and we sorted it into categories. But anyone could do a quick recycle. You just lift the lid and kind of look around and just, you know, think about what's what. And I think it's a common thing for people, you know, in their households to kind of talk to each other about rinsing things out, or does that really go in that bin? Are you doing this right? And so I think it's, you know, recycle audits, which is what we did. It's a good practice to kind of do it every once in a while, make sure everybody's on the same page and that they know they're looking at their guide.
Yes, ours is on our fridge. So absolutely. So if you guys decide that you want to do a recycle waste audit, agreed. It was a good refresher to kind of be like, oh, it's time to check in and see how things are going. We did a garbage waste audit a couple of months ago. That was super illuminating as well. And if you guys decide to do it, snap your pictures and let us know kind of your lessons learned too. It's always also good to see how much I've used those items, like the paper. Have I used it as much as I can before I'm recycling it? That was one thing that kind of came to mind for me.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys. This has been another great show. I am going to introduce our weekly waste challenge for next week. It will be the last week of Recycle Right for the month. And Pat and I, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take some time to tell you guys how we got into this industry and why we are such hardcore waste nerds. So we're really excited to share those stories with you. And if you guys have stories about how you guys got interested, how you found us, why you watch us and follow us, and why you send us questions, we would love to hear from you.
It is a journey. It's a journey. We all are traveling together. So we would love to hear the stories about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Pat, you had brought up, the fact that it's Climate Week this week.
It is. So, climate change is happening before our eyes, of course, with all the forest fires, wildfires, and all the other things that are going on. So there's quite a few things out there. There's webinars. There's things you can look up online about Climate Week. Last night on Netflix, there was a new documentary called Kiss the Ground to really promote composting, which is probably the number one thing we can all do to combat climate change individually is recycle, of course, because all the inherent energy that's in all these materials that are mined or harvested and then refined and then made as a package. But it's the food. It's the food that can be composted down, go back to being a nutrient-rich soil amendment and just kind of regenerating. So yeah, really looking forward to talking more about that.
Sure. And I think that a lot of us are, yourselves included as viewers, are really excited about waste. Like we talk about how waste is one of those things that we have control over, which I have to say nowadays with COVID, there's so few things we can control. It feels like an action that you can take, and you're always consuming things. That's just the nature of it. Even folks who are super hardcore, I know some of you out there are, which is fantastic. We have to consume things. We eat things, we buy things, that happens. But how you manage that waste and the decisions you make are something that impact the environment, right? And I think that that's why interacting with waste is super powerful. And so
I think it is too. I think you're right. It's powerful. It's an everyday activity for pretty much all of us. Yep. You can't change out your furnace or buy a car every day or put a solar panel on your roof, or there's so many elements out there that are contributors, but you don't have daily interaction with it. You use your water or whatever every day, but this is the one where you're making a choice. You're part of this solution. So empty, clean, and dry. Compost your food waste. These are the ones that you can just do every day.
Absolutely, and it kind of keeps your impact on the world at a level of awareness all the time. At least it does for me. So more about that and our stories and our journeys to being hardcore waste nerds next week. So with that, that's another show for Ask Evelyn. Thank you guys so much. This was episode 25. I can't believe it.
I don't know how
you guys have stuck with us, and it's been
really
amazing. Great to see you guys show up every week, watch us streaming, and send us comments. It means a lot to us. We really love hearing from you and talking trash every week. So with that, I'm Becca Fong, and remember, life's simpler with less stuff.
And I'm Pat Kaufman. Thanks for recycling right. Have a good one.
All right. Take care. See you guys next week.
Bye.